Hello, and welcome back to the Let Me Add to That podcast. My name is Elizabeth Graswich, Executive Director of Public Affairs and Communications at the Los Angeles County Office of Education. We are the largest regional education agency in the United States. We serve 80 school districts and nearly 2 million children. We are excited to use this platform to take a deep dive into the conversations surrounding our students and schools in LA County. It is officially March, which means we are in Arts Education Month and Youth Arts Month. The arts are a powerful tool for creativity, expression, and emotional development, and today we're exploring how arts education shapes young minds. We're thrilled to be joined by two incredible guests, Kristin Sakoda, the Director of LA County Arts and Culture, who works to expand arts education across the county through access to free community programs, creative pathways, and professional development. Welcome, Kristin.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Great. Wonderful to have you. And Lois Hunter, Theater Department Chair and Educator at the LA County High School for the Arts, who has dedicated her illustrious career to nurturing the next generation of artists. Welcome, Lois.
No, thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here. Anytime somebody asks me to talk about arts and children, I'm there.
Awesome. Well, that's one of our favorite topics here, too. So super happy to have you both. And I think, we'd just like to start off with learning a little bit more about each of you. And we'll start with you, Kristin, a little bit about your background and your organization.
Sure. Well, again, thanks so much for having me. And I'm thrilled anytime that we are uplifting the role of the arts. And in this case, arts education and arts for all young people. So I grew up, like many of us, a child with siblings and wanted to see what my big sisters were doing. Well, at the time, I grew up in Chicago and we had actually just moved and my sisters were starting ballet lessons. And I wanted to join as well. And I was so fortunate to be able to do that. And that really began a lifelong practice of the arts. I ended up performing professionally as a child in the Chicago area, in the major Nutcracker performances and all the things. And so through that, dance, performing arts, music has played a major role in my life and ultimately in my career as well. But it later in life gave me a perspective that I carry with me today, which is about how to ensure everybody has access to the benefits of arts education and arts engagement because it is so positive for everyone. So I've been involved in the arts for my whole life. I also was a professional performing artist in dance, music, musical theater, Broadway, and others. And later combined that with a law degree to step into what I now do, which is cultural policy, arts administration, arts funding. That's how I got where I am in terms of my career. And now I have the honor of serving as the director of Los Angeles County's Department of Arts and Culture. And I'm sure we'll talk more about all the things that we do. But in short, I'll just say we are the county's local arts agency. And so our job is to advance arts, culture, and creativity throughout LA County. And looking forward to the conversation.
Well, and what a wonderful county to have that role in here at the home of the arts, I think, in the United States. Lois, can you share a little bit about your background?
Well, I've been an advocate for the arts for the last, I would say, 40 years. I don't even want to say past 40 years, but I've been there a long time. And my background actually started when I was a young student. I think that I was heavily influenced by my teachers. I knew I wanted to dance. I was born at a time when there was still basically some segregation as far as going to a dance company. And my mother took me, I remember this, my mother took me to a studio and I was just amazed. I loved it because I was always dancing around the house and everything. She said, okay, well, I think maybe we should kind of give you some formal lessons. So she took me to a dance studio and I loved it. I was dancing and I remember my mother saying, well, you can't go back. And I asked her, well, why can't I go back? Because I that's where I belong. I was thriving, and I must have been about 10, maybe 11. And she said, because the teacher said that other parents did not want you in the class. And so I was a little bit crestfallen, but my mother, of course, continued to encourage me, and I danced around the house. I danced in the neighborhood. I taught, whatever I could do. I did it with my immediate family. And then when I got into school, and I remember it was in junior high school, I think West Side Story was coming out, and my aunt took me to see West Side Story, and I was dancing in the street for it. I kept dancing in the street, and she said, you're going to be a dancer. And I said, I hope so. So anyway, I took dance in high school. I did take a class, but I also played basketball, which I love today. And I went on to college and continued my dance studies and theater in college. And I think that because of the teachers that I had that encouraged me, they never looked at me as anything else but an artist, that I continued on, and I want to pass that on to my students now. So I did some professional work, absolutely. I did a lot of local theater and summer stock and all that kind of stuff. And then I came to Los Angeles in a show with Lena Horne. It was called Baljoey 78. And so I landed in Los Angeles. And when the show closed, everybody knows this business is, can I say online, sugar to shit? Because that is this business. And I'm sure Kristin will agree with me that, sometimes we're up and sometimes we're down. And so I was down. And luckily for me, my mom, who was a teacher, has been a teacher for a long time, encouraged me to, you have a credential. You did get a credential, didn't you? I said, yes, I did, because my parents, they're from the old school. All the kids would have to go to school and get a credential. And so she said, well, why don't you think about, teaching in Los Angeles? And I thought, okay, well, I don't know. I want to, continue to hit the boards. So my first job in Los Angeles was with Bret Harte Middle School. Now, if anybody's ever taught at a middle school, you know that is rough. And I taught there for about 6 months. And another woman, Sylvia Russo, saw my work after school because they didn't have an arts program as such in the day-to-day curriculum for the children. But after school, I taught them how to dance, and we put on musicals and we acted and all that kind of stuff. And just so happened Sylvia Russo saw me and said, you should come over to Los Angeles Unified School High School. And so I did, and I went to Manual Arts High, and then I went to Washington Prep, and then I landed at the Los Angeles County High School for the Arts, which I love. And I've been there for 30-something years, teaching dance and theater. But I think because of my teachers, the teachers that I had in elementary school, in middle school, in high school, in college, encouraging me to continue no matter what, because they knew I had a passion for it in the arts. I think that is why I am where I am today.
Well, and what I love about both of your stories, especially as we think about youth, is you were impacted and shaped as young people and encouraged to go into this path. But then also, I think oftentimes adults that are maybe not involved in the arts don't know that there's a lot of different pathways and a lot of different career possibilities beyond just performance or shows or doing your art. There's a lot of ways of giving back to the greater art community, and both of you have done both, right? Mm-hmm. Which is so cool.
Yeah. I mean, there's something I like to say whenever I run into a fellow dancer. I say dancers can do anything. And it's actually true.
Absolutely.
And I say it not only as a means of, sort of propping ourselves up. I say it actually because it speaks to the truth that engaging in the arts and a lot of the skills that are actually learned through arts engagement, creative expression, communication, collaboration. I mean, think about performing arts especially, so much of performing arts is a collaborative art form. It's very rarely a single human being doing the entire, work in terms of creating a dance or a music or being in a band, putting on a theatrical show. There's the stage, there's the crew, there's the set, there's the lights, there's the writers, all of that, whether anyone articulates it as such, it is teaching you how to be part of something larger than yourself, how to work with other folks. And then, of course, there's so many transferable skills. And we hear this a lot from employers all across any industry, that creativity, being able to engage with other human beings, creative thinking, all of these are really important skills. And so, yes, there are two things there in what you're saying. One is there are actually a lot of jobs that relate to arts and creative industries.
Absolutely.
And the average person often does not know it. Young folks don't know it. Families don't know it. And I will actually also add that I think folks who maybe just don't have some sort of direct access, if you don't, happen to be someone whose, parent works in the music industry or whatever it is, and most of us really aren't, and we're not that. Folks just say, I want to be, the actor. I want to be the rapper. And not know that there's actually 100 jobs behind that could really uplift any of your passions and connect them to the arts, whether that's a background in science or building or, and that all of these skills can transfer into anything else, business, teaching, et cetera. So I think it is such a great point, and it is something I have discovered. So I'm excited to sit here with a fellow dancer because truly dancers can do it all.
And just to add to that, the thing that is so enthralling about the arts is that it doesn't matter what native language you speak. It doesn't matter what kind of disability you have, you can still be an artist. Arts are a universal language. And so what I've found with working with a disparate group of young people, and I think one of the things that I hope that we get to is how do we deal with at-risk children, and how do we engage them in the arts? But what I found is that it doesn't matter what language you speak. It doesn't matter your background. It doesn't matter your learning disabilities. It doesn't matter. Arts, all you can do in the arts.
Well, and you bring up such a good point around really access. I was at the Getty one day at an event with a colleague who talked about that she had never even gone to an art gallery or even a museum until she was in her 20s, because she just didn't have access or exposure to that. And it really sat with me and stuck with me. And I thought, well, how many children don't have that access, and how can we as educators help to ensure that there is more equity and access to the arts?
Yeah, it's something we, in many ways, have dedicated our entire department to. I mean, in 1947, actually, the LA County Board of Supervisors created at that time the LA County Music Commission, a citizen advisory body to advise them on ways to fund different music concerts. And really, ultimately, that was about access, providing tickets or letting folks go to the Hollywood Bowl, et cetera. Over the course of decades, that remit kind of kept expanding. Then it was actually the Performing Arts Commission, because why should it only be music? Decades later, it's the Arts Commission more broadly, and that's where we begin to really see some of the foundational programs and strategies that we now carry forward today, as the Board of Supervisors created the first ever LA County Department of Arts and Culture. And we still have our fabulous advisory commissioners. But really our roots are about access to the arts, some might say democratizing, the arts, and uplifting all of us in this so that all of our diverse cultural forms of expression, heritage are available to us, are resourced, and we have opportunities to be in it. When it comes to thinking about that in connection with young people, we have really thought about different strategies. For us, in many ways, the way we deliver on this big mission and vision that arts are vital to our civic life is how we are organized. So we have a grants team where we are funding hundreds of community-based arts organizations, because in many ways, that's where those access points happen. That's where those programs, those exhibits, those performances, and often free and low-cost programs for young folks. But we also commission artists, and we have an entire division centered around arts education. And so what we have really been looking at is how to expand access in school, but also arts learning takes place in communities and for young people who may have a high touch with county systems. So systems impacted youth, foster youth, youth in probation camps and halls. And so thinking about those intersections as well. And so there's I think a lot to be said for all of it and thinking holistically, but in this context of today, knowing that school is or should be, right, the kind of lowercase d democratic way we could reach all students, right, because everyone's going to be there. And so that access is actually embedded in our state of California, in our core requirements, what is to be taught, but we have actually looked at and analyzed data in schools in LA County, and you can find this online in the Arts Ed Data Profile, to assess, and we did find that there still is unequal access to arts learning, and there are some disciplines, including performing arts, that don't have as many classes or as many teachers. It hasn't been as built up as some of the other arts disciplines. And so in general, I think ultimately that is a big part of why we do what we do, and the various strategies of strategic planning for school districts. One of the things we found early on is someone will be a real advocate for arts, and then they'll leave the school. And it'll all go away. So having it actually embedded in the strategic plan, and so we offer that as a service for school districts to apply for. We also provide funding, advancement grants directly to school districts to hire cultural partnerships or teachers or buy instruments. So really embedding that in the schools, and professional development for educators around how to do arts integration into other subjects, and just more learning about the value of the arts. So those are some of the strategies we're employing for access to the arts. But I think in many ways, it is really the heart of kind of what we're doing from both a policy lens, and then also how we're embedding it in our program investments and in the practice of education and the practice of arts.
Well said. Well said. I guess my issue is it never filters down. I've worked. You mentioned 1947. Hey, I've worked for a very long time with Los Angeles, especially Los Angeles County, and I'm always amazed at how many schools do not have arts in them. I'm always amazed at how many people do not know about your organization, and it's perplexing to me that we as arts educators, it does not filter down. I'm a little bit, I don't want to go off topic here, but I think education it's in need of some support all around, because the ideologies that we're hearing today are moving us so far away from the arts into different areas, politically, religiously, culturally, that when I was growing up, we didn't think about that. We thought about it, but it wasn't as prevalent as it is today. So it's wonderful, Kristin, that the county is doing all of this stuff, but I don't know if it's really filtering down in the schools where it really needs to be. Most of the schools that I have dealt with, or the children that come to audition for the Los Angeles County High School for the Arts, it's always those students who've had training before. They've had access before. So my job is to ferret out those children who have not had access. And so I need help in doing that. And I know that there's programs in the county and all of that, because I've worked with, I worked with Laura Zucker years ago in Arts for All when it started. And we tried our very best to make sure that all children were exposed to the arts, because, research, I was telling somebody before, there's tons of research. James Catterall's study that he studied for 12 years, these children from the 9th grade till they were 26 years old. The schools that had arts-enriched programs, those children were successful in their lives. But Los Angeles County is not really, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, getting to those children that really need it the most. Now, we all know that all children are at risk, period. But if, in fact, we want to have children that grow up with quality in their lives, we have got to do a better job. And I applaud you for what you're doing in your position. It's a yeoman's job. I know it is, because I was there at one time, and it's like we're beating the drum, but who's hearing the rhythm? And so I just think that we just need to talk the walk, walk the talk, whatever they say, however that goes. But we're not doing enough of that.
Well, I want to pick up on a couple of things that you were just sharing. I think the first is I do want to make sure that I add that even in our programs, for example, the advancement grant program that I mentioned, which supports school districts with funds that then are matched by the school to buy instruments, further arts education, et cetera, we actually do give priority points to the Title I schools, the schools where there is lower income in the community, because we know that often that correlates with less arts in the schools, but also because we know many schools and communities, because of the way that education is funded in our country, it's supplemented then by a PTA or by sort of the pockets of the community. And so that's also, I believe, part of how we see sort of widening, inequity just broadly. And so to counter that, we give priority for the funding for advancement grant in that way. But I also want to pick up on another point that's coming out of this conversation. And that is preaching to the choir, as they say, which is really important to do.
Yes, we are.
We have to make sure that we are knowledgeable, emboldened, that we know we're engaged in something so meaningful and important, and the data on the benefits of the arts is there. But we also need to reach further. And so I would invite all of us, anyone who's listening right now, to help share and spread the word about the power of the arts, because it needs to be not only kind of supply side in a way, but like demand side too. I want to see more parents and families and kids feeling empowered to say, we'd like to have media and theater and art at my school. I'd like to see policymakers continue and elected officials continue to voice the power of the arts and continue investing in the arts. We want school leaders, principals, just all of the above. And so we know that we can't do that alone. It's going to take all of us. And we also know that there are some organizations who are dedicated to arts advocacy. And so we see organizations like Create California, which is a statewide organization you can follow on social media or see their work. And we've collaborated with them. Locally, Arts for LA has done some of that arts advocacy, but I believe that it really also takes all of us. And what's funny about that is I feel like folks actually do embrace the arts. It is not about being in just an urban place. I mean, whether you're rural, urban, coastal, city, now it is so vital for your life, but I feel like folks kind of overlook it. So you might say, well, what do you think about the role of the arts? And they're like, no, I don't know anything about that. But you're like, but didn't you just tell me how the thing that really got you through the pandemic was listening to music and you were reading these incredible books that were right, And so it's there in a way in plain sight, but being able to tell that story and being able to communicate it out stronger is something that I think, ironically enough, the arts, which is all about storytelling, has still more work to do to try to get that word out there. So just, picking up on that point, I think it's very true.
Well, you were talking about, preaching to the choir, but as my mother used to say, sometimes the choir needs a little sermon. And And here we are, in a place where absolutely there's art all around us. Here, we're sitting in the studio. I'm looking at your beautiful wrap there. That's artistic. I'm on this camera. I'm on this microphone, and somebody, an engineer, had to create this. It's art. Art is all around us. So I think that sometimes you're right. We just overlook something that's so obvious that is necessary in our lives. And the whole idea of all of us beating the drum, I need people behind me too to continue to beat that drum on arts education. And I'm so glad to hear that the county, the Arts Commission, and all of those folks are putting a lot of emphasis on the schools that don't have that and the parents that don't know. You would be surprised at the number of parents that don't even know how to navigate the whole thing. And that's why sometimes they run away from having their children in the arts, because they don't know. They don't realize that arts is going to give them a quality life eventually. I mean, that all the research says that, so we don't have to go down that road. But trying to make sure that parents understand that this is a vital piece that if it's eliminated or not there, will be detrimental to their lives in the future.
Well, and I think you have such a great seat. You are at an absolutely magical school, the Los Angeles County High School of the Arts. And it is, I have to give it a shout out, it is the #1 school in the country for the arts, which we're very proud of. And it's a magical place to go and visit and see the students and the teachers and everyone working together and all the staff, really. It's really wonderful. So from that vantage point, can you share how you've seen the arts impact not only creativity and expression, but also academic performance, behavior, emotional support and well-being?
Well, Kristin hit on it a little bit about the nature of arts and the collaborative nature of the arts, the teamwork. Sports and arts are very similar because each person has to hold up the other person. So when our students have to audition to get into the High School for the Arts, but I always look, and I think my colleagues do the same, we look for students who really have a passion for it. Is it something that they, at this time of their lives, now remember they're 13 years old, so at this time of their lives, are they passionate about acting? Are they passionate about painting on a canvas? Are they passionate about moving in space? Are they passionate about playing an instrument? We get a lot of students who come to our door that have not had any training, but I'm telling you, they have passion for it. And what happens is when they are, even if they haven't had any training, when they're put in a situation like LACHSA, the Los Angeles County High School of the Arts, when they're sitting next to a student who may have had more training than they have, but they have that passion, those children collaborate together and beauty happens. And so I guess to go back to your question, the whole idea of them being able to work together is really important, I think. And it shows when they graduate. These kids, they go on and they've made friends for life, and they support each other in their arts and they continue. Some go into arts, some don't go into arts. But I think it's the whole collaborative piece with arts that is important.
Yeah. I mean, it's a wonderful place. And I know I've talked to several of your students over the years. And, sometimes they go in with one area of arts that they're focused on and even kind of switch while at the school, just based on exposure and experience.
Well, it's cliche to say it's transformative, but it is. Mm-hmm. If you've never experienced art and the way that we do at the Los Angeles County High School for the Arts, it's rigorous, it's intense, and I think that when the children leave, they have transformed from what they thought they wanted to do in the arts to what they have become. So I can't stress enough that we are the #1 arts high school in the nation, and it's for a reason.
Yeah.
Because we have fabulous teachers. Our faculty are professionals in their field, and so the kids are not only getting a strong academic base there, but the arts are exceptional at the Los Angeles County High School for the Arts. And I'm just going to put a plug in. We are in the throes of auditioning. So if anybody would like to come over, just say you heard it from Lois Hunter, and I'm here to audition. And I've had children literally walk off the streets. And I had a student once, and I'll just tell this story quickly. He saw the bunch of students in a line, I guess, waiting to come in to register to audition. And he asked one of the kids that was standing in the line, "What are you all doing here?" And they said, "We're auditioning for the arts. And today we're doing dance was in one building and theater was in another." And he said, "Oh, wow, I'd love to be an actor. Okay, I should come in and audition." He literally walked off the street in there, and he did not apply or anything, and he filled out the papers, and he came in, and when the day of the audition, he came to the audition, and he did, we have a criteria. You have to do 2 monologues, contrasting. You can do Shakespeare. You don't have to do Shakespeare. He did a scene from Scarface, and it was fabulous. It was amazing. And, he had, have you ever seen a play? No, never seen a play. Only saw movies. This is all good. And he turned out to be one of our top theater majors.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I love that story for so many reasons. It just illuminates talent, right? Talent is innate. It is everywhere, but the cultural resources and the access to them are often not equitably distributed. And so I think that's really right, what we're trying to lift up. But also, so much of this, I think, speaks also to a broader understanding around education that in so many ways, I think some of the best education and the best arts is responding to and providing outlets for the young person's own interests, right? And picking up on those to teach the various lessons and skills and allowing those to come through. And that can be, whether it's arts, it can be about also the notion of culturally relevant arts education. So having a diverse array of art forms or backgrounds, or letting someone come and say, well, I am picking up the drama that's in Scarface, and not needing to be somebody else's definition of what is appropriate, what is classic, what is the right sort of cultural background, right? But instead allowing all of that to breathe and all of that to inform the young person's interests and be really recognized and supported, because it's all value. And it really is all valuable. So I love that story so much. I know we've talked a lot about arts and careers, right? And so we're thinking so much about the intersection of arts and other areas of our lives, our careers and the economy, learning and education, youth development. But I also want to highlight arts and mental health. This is something we've heard so much in our communities from our young people and from our schools. And so we're doing more and we're finding more interest and partnership around the role of arts to support mental health of young people. And I want to highlight a resource, a program that we developed in partnership with LA County Mental Health, Office of Child Protection, and even community-based arts collaborators like the Arts for Healing and Justice Network. It's called Creative Wellbeing. And on our website, you can even find a curriculum guide and a series of webinars for adults who work with young folks, especially those who might have experienced lots of trauma. This program, Creative Wellbeing, really thinks about arts as a mental health support and providing that for these young people, but also professional development for adults that work with and care for young people. They could be social workers, educators, teaching artists. And so I just invite folks to lift those up. We know it's important in general, but I will share that in this time with the wildfires, we've actually had increased demand for this to support the young people who lost their schools and their homes, but also to support educators who lost their schools and are now trying to come back together around how to move forward. I also just wanted to pick up, because I don't want to forget to say this somewhere in this conversation, in terms of access to the arts, that we do have a few at LA County Department of Arts and Culture. We have worked on a few items and ways to kind of get the word out a little bit more, including auditioning for LACHSA. Right. So recently, for the first time, I really asked my team to help me think about how we could share some of the creative career programs that are happening at different county-affiliated agencies across the agencies, specifically for young people. Because we have, for example, not only our arts education work we're doing with school districts, we have developed an online website called Creative Careers Online, which tends to reach diverse young folks who may be underrepresented in the creative economy, but to showcase all these different careers, video gaming and teaching artists and all these pieces. So you can go and you can see that. We also have one of the nation's largest paid arts internship programs for college students, the LA County Arts Internship Program, which you can find on our website. Many of these you can find on our website, lacountyarts.org. And we've even partnered with PBS SoCal on 2 different incredible shows. One was one of their Artbound documentaries a couple of years ago, Artbound, Arts Education. It lifts up all the data, the policy reasons why arts education matters, but you get to hear from different speakers, artists, Debbie Allen, youth. It's phenomenal. And then recently they did a show called Art Happens Here with John Lithgow, and it featured LACHSA and
students.
And among some other community-based arts organization, where he really joins the kids and shows a broader audience why this matters. And I had the good fortune of advising PBS SoCal on that, including connecting them to LACHSA.
Okay, thank you.
To be able to do that. So I'm really excited. I want people to check all of those out. But we created specifically a creative career mini guide that you can also find online, or maybe we can link when we share this out, that includes LACHSA, but our arts internship program, other programs taking place at the LA Phil, which operates on the county's music center and Walt Disney Concert Hall. There are programs from the library there and others. And so it's a great way to introduce youth and families to an array of programs to try to help get the word out.
Yes, and I should say and share that we will share resources through our channels and make sure that I'll repeat that again later in the show, but making sure people know that we will be sharing out this information, because there are so many opportunities that people don't necessarily know about, and it just makes me think too, as we're talking about kind of career pathways in the arts, and one of the things that we've seen in education is a move from STEM to STEAM, which I think is really interesting, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it. So, STEAM being science, technology, engineering, arts now and mathematics, which is a big shift that's taken place.
Yeah. So, I can speak to that, because at LACHSA, one of the things that amazed me, one of our biology teachers, one of our science teachers did years ago, worked with the dance teachers to create the molecular ballet. And it was fascinating to watch how these molecules bounced off each other in ballet class. And, the whole idea of arts not being part of STEM in the first place was kind of dingy, if you ask me, because like I was saying before, if you look around, everything that you do, he's drinking out of a coffee cup. Somebody had the wherewithal to do the ceramics on that coffee cup to make it look beautiful. Well, I guess it's a Starbucks coffee cup. Yes, indeed.
The graphics,
logo. the logo. And so, art is all around us. So for the omission of the A in STEM, it was perplexing to me. I didn't understand that. And so I was really glad that they finally did put that in there, because with math, there's art. With engineering, there's art. So I think that our students knew that intuitively all the time. And sometimes we just have to catch up with them.
And I would just add that I think it's a great way to make sure we're speaking to all students. Some won't come running if you're just talking about math, but they might when you have the arts component in there, even though there's a lot of intersections. And so I think that's another exciting area that is probably only going to continue to grow if we have the ability to see and recognize it. Art, design, all of these intersect with technology, with infrastructure, with building projects, and even music has a lot of math actually embedded in music theory, right? So all of these pieces are also intersectional and can be combined to create innovation. And it's a great way to just expand that. And even in the story that Lois told about the dancing molecules,
molecular ballet.
Arts also has a phenomenal way of helping folks understand concepts differently, right? And each of these disciplines, right? You can take science concepts but express them in ways that are unique and interesting through the arts. And so, I think that's great. I also think just in learning, no matter what career you do, how many times have we heard about some scientist or someone who says, but one of the other things that really shaped me is I always played violin and I still play now. So, and again, this is just me going back to the broader point, but we didn't go through some of the specifics of the data, but we have seen data show that often students have higher educational attainment overall if there's arts at their school. We see better and more civic engagement of communities. We also have seen a better sense of inclusion and belonging at schools when there's arts embedded. And I would say even more broadly than the school, there are incredible research like the Social Impact of the Arts Project, which essentially showed that when there are more cultural resources in a community, artists, art programs, cultural organizations, there is a statistically significant correlation in better outcomes in things like educational attainment, but also public health, public safety, and that's at a community-wide level. So when we think about that, it means that arts are not only good for us as individual people or individual students, it's actually even good on a community level. It's part of a healthy community, even if you didn't go to the play, you didn't go to the program, but having that as part of your community overall makes those other areas of social health and well-being and educational attainment actually have better outcomes because that is a part of your community overall. So I just think the intersections are really strong, even if we're still kind of learning to see them. It's actually really strong. And a lot of people don't know that the arts and creative economy is one of our largest economic drivers in LA, in LA County, billions of dollars each year in economic activity, but also in our whole country. It's huge. So it's bigger than a lot of industries that other folks would not realize that it is. So if people want to talk only about, manufacturing or only about, other pieces, raising up arts and creative economy is bigger than most of those and helps us drive innovation, even in tech, even in, science, even in other areas.
Absolutely.
Well, and when you think about the other letters of STEAM, the science, technology, engineering, and math, artificial intelligence plays a big role now in that and will in the future. And my listeners will know that I talk a lot about artificial intelligence. I'm very interested in it. But one of the things they say with artificial intelligence is something you brought up, Kristin, at the top of the show, which is going back to the C's. Communication, creativity, collaboration. Those are all things that young people really need to strengthen and know as we go into a world of changing technology. And what a beautiful thing that arts can bring to that conversation and help strengthen that for our young people.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, Steve Jobs said it with Apple. It's the humanities that made Apple. Not necessarily, of course, the sciences also, but the humanities made Apple.
And the great design. I mean, you could never,
Right.
you know.
Look at that design.
Right?
I know.
So true.
But I think the artificial intelligence, the AI piece, is really interesting because we are at a very polarized moment on that, where obviously there is so much concern about AI taking over not only just jobs generally, but especially creative jobs,
Sure.
Or jobs of folks in Hollywood, or taking folks' copyrighted works, and instead just saying, hey, we'll just sort of scrub this and grab this and then make our own version off of it without actually giving any credit to that author or any compensation. So there are a lot of deep concerns right now. It's very polarizing, I would say. But I also want to lift up that there are some folks thinking a lot about the fact that this kind of technology is being built. How do we ensure that there are folks from a wide, diverse array of backgrounds in those conversations, helping to lead who's building it, including artists, but also including, women and other folks who will bring a variety of perspectives to it, so that we can have it be not just effective at what it's trying to do, but also ethical. Also embrace creativity, embrace those things in ways that are positive and complementary. And so I think that's an interesting and evolving area of for all of us. I was going to say of the field, of the profession, but it's interesting for students too. For me, one of the things though that comes to mind so strongly about the connection between AI and kind of just this current landscape right now and young people is critical thinking. Mm-hmm. And that is something else that the arts do well in terms of developing. There are programs and studies that have found when you look at a piece of art and you engage with it in a constructive way for maybe a 10-minute period, and you're maybe guided to look at different details and talk about them, you are working those muscles about the critical thinking. And right now, how are our young people being guided to understand what is true? What is this image? Who created it? What do you think this says right now? Because honestly, that to me is a huge part of how we navigate, the next phase of life, really, and of maturity of the next generation.
So how can we ensure that is happening in the classroom? I think that's your question.
Yes,
And that's a really important question. So, it brings me back to the actual thing that we're talking about, which is art education. And in my experience, art education has always been perceived as elite. Only certain people can be artists. And so it does go back to what is being taught in the classroom and how students are perceiving who is an artist and who is not. In my experience, I've been here for a while. I used to be able to go to see a play for $10. Mm-hmm. How much does it cost to see a play today? And so the perception that art is for everybody, it does fly in the face of a lot of things that we're talking about. And that whole critical thinking piece, I think, goes back to the classroom. What is being taught in the classroom? So I would like to hear your opinion on art as being elite and only for certain people.
Yeah. Well, I definitely, just in terms of art in the classroom, I just wanted to say both arts disciplines as standalones and arts integration, I think, are really important opportunities for bringing that into the classroom. If I'm not one, but if I were a social studies teacher or a history teacher or whatever, fill in the blank, I know that for me, I would definitely want to be finding ways to integrate arts and culture into the classroom. And so I know we at LA County Arts and Culture, we've partnered a lot with LACO for years and actually funded a huge program developing curriculum and how it can be used in arts integration as well as social emotional wellness and well-being. So I know that's a huge area, and I think it's a big opportunity in terms of creative writing, but also journalism, and also how do you have all these pieces come together, as well as having the chance to go off-site, go to field trips, and have artists come in, because some folks get to go to the glorious LA County High School for the Arts, but not everybody. And so we might have to make sure we're also bringing artists in so they can see all these different roles. And that's part of the beauty of things like Creative Careers Online too, to kind of open up that aperture to say, these are actually all jobs in arts and creative industries. But going to your point about some of the narratives, so there have been a few narratives, I think, over decades, really. Some are that arts are only for the elite.
Yes.
Some are that artists are just sort of crazy people who, some is that arts is just fluff. It's not necessary. It's not essential to life. It's extracurricular. It's not core. It doesn't really need to be invested in, or the public sector doesn't need to be involved. Just have the pride, which kind of some of these dovetail, because in that one, maybe you're just thinking only the donors who can afford to, fund the opera, and they'll just take care of it. But if we really want access to the arts, we've got to have the public sector involved. It's got to be part of public school.
Yes.
It's got to be part of the grants we're giving to arts organizations so they can have more free and low-cost programs. It's got to be part of that. And so I really want to push back against the idea that it is only for elites. We also know, and I think it's good to acknowledge, culture is a practice from time immemorial. These are basket weaving, storytelling, singing, mute. These are not elite ideas that only somebody up on a shining hill can do. And so there really is such a wide range, and I think we do have to kind of push back and say, actually, this is everything from what happened in the juke joints to what's happening on the stage of LA Opera to what's happening in, kids breakdancing in the street. It's all of that is arts and cultural expression, and it's all valuable, so that we can try to fight some of those ideas.
Because all cultures have folk art. All cultures have folk art, and so the whole idea of storytelling is in the African American diaspora is long history. So I bring up eliteness because the Los Angeles County High School for the Arts is perceived as being elite, and I tell everybody that no, there is, we have not cornered the market on talent. There's talent throughout the county of Los Angeles, but I think that what we strive to do that most arts schools do not is to make sure that students who have a passion for the art have an opportunity to come in. So when you look at the audition criteria, it might say, oh, you have to do, a modern dance piece. No, you can bring in your own dance piece now. Whatever you feel, you can do an interpretive dance, you can do ballet folklorico, you can do a tap dance, whatever you want to do, you can do it. The same thing with visual arts. Graffiti art is art. So if that is what you're doing, bring that in. And the same thing with theater. I gave the example of Scarface. What you bring with your passion is what we do at our school. And I know that a lot of people think the Los Angeles County High School of the Arts is elite, but it really isn't. It really isn't. If you dig deeper, you will find that we have, like I said, we have not cornered the market. There's so many talented children in the Los Angeles County. It would, I worked years ago at Washington Prep and Manual Arts High School. And I was the drama and the dance teacher, right? And back in those days, we had the Crips and the Bloods. Okay, I don't know, those were gangs. And I mean, my students would say, Mrs. Hunter, you can't wear red today, or you can't wear red tomorrow, or blue tomorrow. And but I had those children in my class. And what I saw when they worked together and collaborated on a musical or a dance piece or a scene, they came together in those performances and those opportunities. And that whole idea of being a part of a gang, Crips and Bloods, that was not even there. So what I guess my point is, being engaged in the arts saved their lives, really. And years after that, I did get an award from the Music Center. I was awarded a Bravo Award. And I think it was because, one of the reasons I think it was because my classes were a haven for students. There was all of this stuff going on in their lives at home and in the community. But they knew they could go to Mrs. Hunter's dance room, and there they could all be one, dancing together, making art, being passionate about what they were doing. And, you know, I look back on that and the whole idea of arts changing a person's life, that's what we do in the classroom as teachers of the arts. We change their lives. Those kids who are in the Bloods and the Crips, well, they may have killed each other when they were outside of Mrs. Hunter's dance class, but when they were inside, they were working together, collaborating on a piece of art. And that, to me, is what arts education is about.
Yes, phenomenal. And I think that, well, first of all, let me just say a little aside, which is I would have been jealous because, you know, all of that incredible, exciting, you know, culture and arts and having that be part of a rich part of like every day at LACHSA is something I really wanted when I was young. I mentioned I was a dancer, right? And I saw the movie Fame, maybe younger than I was supposed to, but I saw the movie Fame and it just was so inspiring, you know, to see that and to imagine that you could go to a high school for the arts like that. It was LaGuardia in that movie, the LaGuardia High School in New York City that is pictured, and the ideas of people dancing in the streets. I mean, all these vivid images, right?
On top of
Debbie
cars
Allen,
and
you know, all that. And it did, and ultimately later it did draw me, and I did end up going and had a 20-plus career in New York City, including as a professional dancer. But I do remember I asked my parents, can I switch and go to the Performing Arts High School here in the Chicago? And they were like, no. And I was very like, oh, man. You know, it wasn't even like near us at all. But it was always sort of a beacon, that idea that you could have that. And so I love that that's, you know, the stories and the realities of how you're changing lives. And I feel that all of our schools can tap into some of that. And we want that. You know, somebody opened this, I think it was you today, Lois, talking about, I first started in middle school. And, you know, that's the toughest thing. And I almost wanted to bristle because I thought, well, you know, my daughter's in middle school. But I want to, you know, give a shout out to all the schools that are really promoting and prioritizing the arts programs they do have. I'm fortunate that where my daughter goes to school, there is a school choir program, and it's her elective, and they are then allowed to have that elective every single day. So this is John Muir Middle School in Burbank, and so there's this incredible realization that I had where I realized this is phenomenal. She gets to have choir as a period every single day during the school day, and honestly, at that point, it's not me thinking about a singing career or anything. It's because I know that the arts will, and having that every day will allow her to express herself, belong, and be part of something. They compete as a team, they perform, how to collaborate, sing your part, right? And let other people shine in theirs. And we also know there's data about literally what it is for your physical health. That singing like 20 minutes a day is good for your cardiovascular. I mean, there's so many elements to it. So while she, you know, may only mainly have it in like one period of the day and maybe not as fully as, you know, she would if she was at LACHSA, but I'm still want to give encouragement to schools that might say, we'd love to do that, but we're not sure how. And there are opportunities for cultural partnerships. Also, we know that we have the advancement grant program at LA County Arts and Culture. You should check that out. And we've got what passed on the ballot.
Prop 28.
Prop 28.
Absolutely.
And we know that this is an opportunity. One of the things we have seen with that, I will say, just is that the schools that did have a strategic plan, many of them, maybe not all, but many of them had worked with us over the last few years. So we've worked with about 76, I think, of the 80 school districts.
Wow,
and so the ones that did have a current strategic plan in the arts, we have heard that they were able to move forward more quickly on the Prop 28 funding because they already had a sense of what is the arts? How can we use this? What should we do? We've got some goals. Now we can use this money to move them. Others who hadn't quite yet put it together how to integrate the arts or that value of it, I think might be more the ones where the money is not quite hitting utilization point. But at that really is a landmark.
Well,
for us.
educating our parents on Prop 28 is paramount, because a lot of parents don't know this, especially in quote-unquote underrepresented districts and schools. And I think they need to understand that there is money out there for arts education. And it's a big piece.
Yes.
Yeah, and we're so fortunate that we got the funding, and that there's now a commitment, right, on the part of the state towards that.
Absolutely. And I will highlight that, the way it was designed, I think about 80% of the funding is intended to be used to hire arts teachers, for the program. That also means 20% of it can be used for instruments, cultural partnerships, etc. But since I'm sitting here with a certified arts teacher, Lois, I wonder, now I'm going to turn into the journalist, I wonder what you might have to share with anyone out there listening who maybe is not yet working in the schools or is not credentialed. There are so many incredible artists and teaching artists working in LA County and across the state who actually have a rich amount of experience. They may not yet be credentialed, but there are lots of folks, and there may be new folks just coming out of college or whatever. Do you have any wisdom to share with them about folks who want to possibly teach?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we did not have the credential in dance and theater in California. We used to have it. Now, back in the day, I got my credential in dance and theater, but that was back in the day. Then they cut that out. So you could only be credentialed in music and visual arts. So that was very limiting. Now you can get a credential, and some of my professional artists have been getting their credentials in dance and in theater. Our school is very fortunate because we can hire quote-unquote uncredentialed teachers because they are professionals in their field. So our school hires professional artists, designers, actors, musicians. But because now there's that credential that you can almost literally get in a year, I am trying to encourage all of my artist educators to get that credential, because California still is in that mode that you have to have a credential. And I'm not sure if that is all that important if, in fact, you are an accomplished professional artist. I think that we need to take another look at that and be able to offer positions to accomplished artists in the schools. That would help so much, because getting credential, number one, it's going to cost money. It costs money to get a credential, but we have all of these wonderful artists in Los Angeles, all over the place, and LACHSA is very fortunate because we can hire them, but Crenshaw High can't. And so there's a disparity there that needs to be addressed. And I think that that is something that we should maybe have the arts commissioners take a look at. Why can't all of the schools have artists come into the day? Now, they can come after school. And that's all. This was a sore point for me, because it makes it extracurricular. Even though we have some fabulous after-school programs, we have Plaza de la Raza, Fernando Pullum has his great place. We have Yola. What else? We have Inner City Arts. We have wonderful after-school programs. But to me, it always feels a bit like an add-on curricular. And I hate that word, extracurricular. I would much rather have it inside on the students' day-to-day, like your daughter is taking her choir every day. All of the students should be taking an arts class all day. But for the administration to say, well, we don't have credentialed teachers, so now you're limiting what that child is going to receive. And to me, that's we need to take another look at that.
Yes, thank you. I know we're having, there are lots of conversations about that at the state, because it's state of California Department of Education is my understanding. I think it's really their purview, but I know this is a point that has come up a lot, so I appreciate you.
Yeah, great points on that as well. But before we wrap, and we do need to wrap at this point, is, I'd like for each of you to share recommendations on how we can get our youth exposed or introduced to the arts. What's your advice on that?
I think that they need to see it. They need to do it. Our children need more opportunities to go to plays. They need more opportunities to go to dance. The seed was planted in me when I saw dancing, and I'm sure Kristin would say the same thing. Those little seeds are planted when they see something. And so I think that the more opportunity young people have to work on an arts project, to listen to music, to engage in playing the drums or the guitar, they have to have that opportunity and experience. And so I guess to answer your question, we need more in-school opportunities for the kids to be able to do that.
Thank you.
Yes, and I would agree that in many ways there's no age too young to start. I mean, babies can listen to music, and toddlers can be drawing and be exposed, and there's great children's theater out there. I mean, there's a lot of avenues for engagement, and certainly ensuring that we have robust arts in school, not only with certified teachers, but also with cultural partnerships, school trips where possible. Those are really important ways. And also, I think parents out there can seek out these programs, can look up some of the resources I know we're going to share, and can maybe point it out even just in the everyday of really looking at the beauty or the incredible painting that you might walk by. And I will add, so many organizations, for example, museums, might have a free day. So we have also sometimes partnered with different county departments or others, whether it's the Association of Southern California Museums or whether it's the LA County Department of Social Services, to get information out there about the free museum day, because many museums do have a day where you can go, but also after school programs between the bells. These are all ways. And for those who might be a little older, maybe they are middle school or beyond, who might be thinking about what careers there are in the arts, things like creative careers online, things like talking to, and one of the things we're thinking about is how do we educate the career counselors?
Absolutely.
So that if a young person turns to their teacher or their career counselor, those folks have in front of them a knowledge of, well, there are a variety of careers in this area that I see you're so interested in. So those are some of the ways, but certainly I would say even at home, what you do at home or in your community. And of course, expressing this if you do participate in your school PTA or local funding, meetings and things like that, actually articulating it to your school board so that they hear it. Ask it of candidates for school board. Are they going to prioritize it? So kind of a wide range of what you just do in every day, how we integrate it into, our school systems and other systems, and at kind of a policy-making lens, how we increase the investment in it, because the arts still are in many ways underinvested.
Well, I want to thank you both for just a great conversation. I could talk about the arts all day long, so I appreciate you both. I appreciate you for your work and your commitment to youth and the arts. As a reminder to our listeners, we will be sharing information in the notes on how you can get some more information about these resources, and we always encourage you to go to laco.edu, lacoe.edu, where we will share information about Arts Education Month as well as arts education in general. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Please follow the Los Angeles County Office of Education on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Los Angeles COE. That's Los Angeles COE. Or you can find us on Facebook and LinkedIn at Los Angeles County Office of Education.